Okay, so in this video I did some basically simulated calculations and I was able to generate sort of these numbers for all of the bows that Ganyu can use for her charged shot. So there's a lot of assumptions. You can just see the graph here if you want, but I need to talk through all of the assumptions so that it makes sense where these numbers are coming from, um, and why sort of stuff is where it is. So I'm doing my calculations with these values over here, and I'm just going to go one by one through all of the bows, um, just to kind of explain what I'm taking into account and what I'm not taking into account. So for the stringless, so we're also not taking into account any reactions or elemental mastery or energy recharge. So those bows are going to do the worst in this video, but doesn't mean that they're bad bows. So basically stringless, we're not considering basically its elemental mastery, so it's losing out there. We're just considering its base attack and then its effect. Elemental burst damage increased by 24%. In our case, it would actually be higher because I'm considering for all of the 4-star bows that they're at R5, so it would be 48%. But because we're just doing a charged shot with Ganyu, we're not considering the stringless, so it's actually coming out pretty bad here. But if you're using it for the ultimate, it is pretty good. It should do a lot better because it would be kind of buffing by 48%. So the Blackcliff Warbow here is going to do really good because we're kind of idealistically um, assuming that we can maximize its utility. So we're assuming that we're holding 3 stacks and it's R5, so that's 72% extra damage, and then it's got this much crit damage being added in. It's got no bonuses, and then it's got, I think that's crit rate. It's got no crit rate being added. This is the base attack. Um, the next bow is the compound bow. So the compound bow gives physical damage percent, so I'm not counting that at all. And then basically it increases its attacks by 8%, but he's only got 4 stacks and these only last for 6 seconds. So I'm assuming, I'm not exactly sure. I'm just assuming this could be a little bit higher, but I'm assuming that you could only hold 2 stacks consistently at all times because the charge shots, they might take a little while. I don't know exactly how long. Um, you could get 3 or 4 stacks, but I'm just assuming 2 stacks, so I'm adding only 16% attack, and that's at R5. So here we've got 16% attack, and then it's just the base attack at level 90. So next is the Favonius Warbow. It doesn't give any of these stats, any crit rate, crit damage, attack bonus, or elemental bonus. So we just have its base attack. Its energy recharge is not coming into play here, and its effect, which is energy recharge, is not coming into play here. This weapon is really good for a burst spam unit. If you just want to spam the burst, they will not do as much damage as they could basically, but they are really good at spamming their burst and getting all of that energy recharge. So for the prototype Crescent here, it's getting its attack percent, and then we're assuming we're going to be doing a charged attack hit on a weak spot. I don't know if every single monster has a weak spot. If they don't, this won't apply obviously on any of the other ones, and I did do a calculation without considering this buff. So if you're not able to hit weak spots, how much damage is going to output. But if it does hit a weak spot, then you should get a very large attack buff for 10 seconds at R5. So that's 72%. So basically we've got 41.3% plus 72%. So that's added here. And that's it, I think. Because basically, yeah, it's attack, it's not attack damage. It should be right there. Um, these numbers turn out very big for some reason. But the prototype Crescent looks like for doing charged shots, it's really, really good. Next one's going to be the Royal Bow. So for the Royal Bow, I did a video about how this crit rate will actually um, kind of stack up. So I think it could be a little bit higher than what I have because I've got only 4%. So I think I was actually considering um, a slightly lower refined bow, but it's not going to be too much. It could be slightly higher, and the Royal Bow didn't do too badly in the tests. So that one's pretty good, I think. Yeah, so 6.5. I think it's like okay. Um, and then it's got the 41% attack bonus, so it has that. and then Rust would be next. So Rust, yeah, so the decrease in its charged attack doesn't increase as you refine it, so that's okay. We're not going to get this basically because it's not a normal attack, it's a charged attack, so it should just be -10%. And then we're at 41% attack percent bonus. So that's 41% and -10%. So you can see how the rust does with everything. Sacrificial bow is basically after damaging an opponent, its skill doesn't apply here in this damage test. Um, and then basically has energy recharge, so it's not getting anything here, any buffs. Viridescent Hunt is really good, and so I also didn't apply the Viridescent Hunt's effect. So we can see here, I included the crit rate, but I didn't actually apply this effect into the damage calculation because I'm not exactly sure how to do it. I was trying it, but I was getting some weird numbers. So um, I can tell you from my calculations, I've got the base kind of attack down, but we don't have this buff, so it should be like higher up on the list from where it is now. Okay, so we've got the Skyward Harp, the Amos bow, and then this Dreams bow that's not out yet, I think. So the Amos bow, this is the bow that's supposed to be the best for Ganyu. In my tests, I get some results that are a little bit questionable, but basically the problem with it is, well, here, I'll show you. But basically, I've got charged attack damage increased by 12%. So if we go Amos bow, so we've got 12% for that, and then I'm assuming that you're maxing out this fly time. So 5 times 8% is 40%, so the maximum you can get is 40 extra percent. That should add up there. So you're getting like a 52% increase here, and then this is your attack percent increase from the substat. So I think I've got everything here. My base attack is correct, so it's interesting. But if we look at the Skyward Harp, then the Skyward Harp, it basically is giving us 22% crit rate. Skyward Harp is 22% crit rate, and then its sub effect is that it's doing 20% crit damage. And I didn't even include this extra AoE attack physical damage, even though that's like extremely good, and that would also have like it would increase the damage. But basically, I'm just including crit damage and crit rate. And so the way I do my calculations, those two are very valuable. So they're probably, so I'll talk about it later, but those actually give the Skyward Harp a very big edge. Also, the Skyward Harp has a much larger base attack, if we can see here, than the Amos bow. Um, and I think that also has a very large effect in the results that I have. Okay, then we've got the Dreams of Dragonfell, which is, I think this is not out yet. It might come in the future. It's here on Honey Impact, so I did the math for it. But basically, you need to have a shield in order to run this. And if you don't have a shield, then you won't get the second effect. But I assume you do have a shield and you're maxing this out. So it's just increasing kind of these stacks. So I'm going 5 times 8, which is 40%, and then I'm doubling that to like 80%. Um, So we've got like this basically, and then, oh, I don't even think I doubled it. Yeah, so we just went 5 times 8%. So that's already loads. So that's the 40%, and then it's getting 40%, 49.6% from the attack percent substat. These are all of the numbers that I'm doing my damage calculation with. If there's any mistakes in this, they're obviously going to show up in the graphs or whatever. But my damage calculation, my code should be pretty good. I was testing it out the other day. I've got a link in the description for a video that kind of shows me testing that out and it's showing that I'm getting kind of end game numbers. Um, but basically, I'm putting all of these values into my code, and that's how it's basically doing these damage calculations. So now we can go here, and I did 2 sets of calculations, and I'm going to show some of the assumptions I also added, like a little bit hard coded in. Basically, there's one with a low crit rate and one with a high crit rate. Sadly, the two don't actually show any big difference in the results, but basically, one, I'm assuming that your base crit rate without adding any artifact or weapon effects is only 45%. So that's 5% from the natural, and then 40% from basically, I think, the Blizzard Strayer effect set or whatever, if and maybe even cryo resonance. I forget exactly, but I think it's not too hard to get 40% with Ganyu. So that's what the assumption is here. Then we're assuming that the base crit damage is only 50%. Yeah, and basically this is kind of what the numbers came out to be like. I'm also going to go into my program. So basically, I also made some changes here. So I'm adding 15% because we're talking about the Blizzard Strayer. So this should be the two set effect. You should have 15% cryo elemental bonus. And then basically the crit rate, this is the 40% increase. For the second tab, what I did was that I basically added an extra 20%. So I assumed from substats you're getting 20% crit rate, and then you're getting 50% crit damage. So this is what I basically ran, and then all of these numbers ran through here and came out and were printed in the console here. And that's how I sort of generated these tables. What it also does here is that it considers every combination of main stat artifacts. So these are attack, like attack percent. This would be crit rate, elemental bonus, and then attack. This would be crit damage, attack. And you get the idea. Basically, so when you're not critting, there was a kind of a trend that the attack elemental bonus attack is very good, and basically the results showed that, or sorry, attack elemental, yeah, bonus attack is very good, and the results showed that basically this one, a crit rate elemental bonus attack and then a crit damage elemental bonus attack are the most viable kind of in the average sense. So these are the values. You can look at these tables closer, but these are the values for a non-critical hit. These are the values for a critical hit. And then these are the averaged values. So one thing that can affect these values is that if some of the weapons have a crit rate substat. So the way I calculated these average values is that it takes the critical rate and then it'll use that like as a weighted multiplier, and it'll multiply the critical hit damage with it. And then it'll subtract 1 minus the critical rate, and then use that as a weighted multiplier for the non-critical damage. And then it'll add those two up, and that's how we get these average numbers. So basically, this is what you would see if you're taking a lot of shots over a long time, and you just average out your damage by the total number of shots. So I think this is a relatively fair kind of assessment. What we're going to see is that the weapons like the Skyward Harp and even the Viridescent Venerer, or Hunt, sorry, this is Viridescent Hunt, which have extra crit rate substats or main like secondary stats, they actually pull ahead really far, and they do very well in this average kind of damage department, because what we're actually looking at, for example, if we're comparing the Skyward Harp to the Amos bow, is that we're looking at a Skyward Harp with not just 45% base crit rate, but it gets added on from its effect, so it's 67% crit rate. So then we're multiplying 67 by this crit damage, and then only 33% by this non-critical damage. So the critical damage here on the Skyward Harp average calculation is considered much, much more. So that's why it actually comes out higher, even though we can see the Amos bow does do a higher crit hit compared to the Skyward Harp. So that's how this sort of happens, and the Skyward Harp comes out on top. So if we're talking about the exact same artifact set, and just the Skyward Harp and Amos bow, according to this, Skyward Harp is coming out more on top. Because again, we have to remember it does have a much higher base attack. It's like 70 higher, right? Or almost 70 higher. And then it does have extra crit damage and the crit rate. So that's just going to increase these numbers, and it's going to then in this weighted average over time do it. if you were able to reach 100% crit rate, that would be a little bit of a different story. So we're going to see that that's probably the only thing that the high crit values showed. But yeah, basically, I yeah, so also I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So here we can see I have highlighted in green. I might have made some mistakes because I was redoing a lot of these calculations, but I've highlighted all of the highest numbers, and these trends seem pretty consistent. Um, where which artifact main stats will give you the most ideal, like optimized average damage output. So the highest number. Some are like almost equivalent, right? Like this one and this one are very close, right? But and like this one and this one are very, very close. But basically, this will show if you do use the same artifacts. So the results can differ. Yeah, or for example, if we just consider a crit damage and then attack artifacts, then we'll see that Skyward Harp is doing way, way better than the Amos bow here, right? Even though the Amos bow does have a damage potential that's almost 1,000 units higher. That is higher than this one. So it's important for you to understand what I did is I chose the optimal, the highest damage outputs. And then I recorded those here and then I sorted them. And that's how I was able to make this graph. We can talk about, so you can refer to this, I'd say, to see like which set of the three most viable ones, how much it matters for each weapon, like how much you'll be losing if you go with a different main stat set. Of course, always your substats are what is going to matter the most, but we didn't consider those at all here. So I'm going to talk about what we can see in this graph now. So we see the Blackcliff bow is doing the best basically. So when it is at its max full stacks. So the Blackcliff bow is getting a ton of its crit rate. It's got a pretty good base attack compared to like the spear, which has a lower attack, like base attack, and then it has a higher crit rate. But the Blackcliff bow here, according to the numbers that came out, does very, very well. Dreams of Dragonfell is doing very, very well also. And then the prototype Crescent with its basically 70%, 72% attack buff is doing extremely well. You can see also the Blackcliff and the prototype Crescent where they would line up when they're not buffed up. And it's actually not too bad. It's basically because the Blackcliff still has its crit rate, it still has its base attack, and it's doing better than the Rust, which is getting debuffed. Um, it's not getting its normal attack buff, so the Rust could do a little bit better than, say, the Blackcliff without the buff if you're doing a normal attack. That that would give a completely different chart, and also if we're talking about ultimates, that would give a completely different chart than this, or somewhat different chart. So then, yeah, so we can see Prototype Crescent doing extremely, extremely well here because doing that weak spot hit is just doing so much damage there. Um, Skyward Harp is down here basic. If you also want, if you don't like the way this graph looks, you can also look at just the critical damage outputs. So here you can see that the Amos bow is doing actually more damage than the Skyward Harp. You also need to remember that the Viridescent Vener or the Viridescent Hunt should be more to the left because we're not considering its set effect. Um, that should be a little bit higher to the left. But basically everything else is somewhat in place. So I wanted to kind of compare to some other stuff, and here is a spreadsheet from iWinToLose, and he's got like he was doing his calculations probably in a slightly better way with the frames and other things, but the biggest differences he had was his Amos bow was coming out a lot larger, although this is like he is also like doing DPS calculations, and I was just considering one kind of hit. Um, but if you look at the general trend, like the Blackcliff Warbow and the prototype Crescent here is actually in this column doing more damage than the Skyward Harp. And then due to DPS, he moves it down a little bit lower. But it is sort of like the Blackcliff Warbow, the prototype Crescent are up there, and then Skyward Harp. Amos Bow here is the biggest difference between his results and mine. is that he's got it much, much higher. This is just something to look at. It took a little while to make this. In the future, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just consider each weapon individually, and I'm going to consider it for example, Shao, for for different attacks of his, and hopefully it should be a little bit more digestible, and I should definitely do less mistakes because I just wanted to get this out because Ganyu is coming out very, very soon, and this will just be something to look at. And yeah, look around for mistakes. I don't want anyone to kind of just look at this and be like, oh, Amos bow's garbage, and then just throw it out. So there might have been some mistakes somewhere, but I did show all of the input values. My calculator should be all right. I'm just going to show that one more time, at least the damage calculation. So if I made a mistake in the code where I'm passing all of the values in, that is basically my problem, and we can't do anything about that.